So today we're going to show you a way to remove a large percentage of labels off of things that is completely safe, won't damage, won't destroy, won't discolor, won't bubble, or any of that stuff. Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to talk about a safe and effective way to remove probably 55 to 60% of the vintage types of paper labels and things that I run into. Now, this goes for a lot of things. There's a lot of things that this will work for. Now, I know a lot of people try like the Goo Gone, and all of those sorts of things. It's a colored material. It actually can stain, damage, bubble, ruin, finish. It can do a whole bunch of bad things to the things that you're working on. I only use it for hard plastics and things like that. Glass, it's okay, but you still have to clean it after you use that. There's another substance that I use for most things that are gummed. If it's gummed, like an old postage stamp that you have to lick, this stuff works awesome. Now you may think, well, how many things actually are like a postage stamp? Now, this goes for most of the stickers I find on records, albums, cellophane of almost any type, luggage labels, skating labels, sports labels, stamps in general, poster stamps. There's hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of things that I've probably used this for over the last 10 or 15 years. And this is stamp lifting fluid. There may be other ones too, but this is from Vitaforms. I'll actually include a link to get it down below. Now, I have no relationship to these folks in any way, shape, or form at all. I've just used this for a long time. I actually have it in big jugs even for some things that I do. We're going to show you this working in just a minute here so you can just see how efficient and effective it is. I'll also show you just a few things that you can get off using this stuff right here. Now, the biggest point on this, it says super safe. People use this on thousands of dollars worth of postage stamps all the time. They'll use this on a $10,000 stamp because it's very safe, very effective, and it only takes a matter of 20 or 30 seconds to do its job. This is by far the safest bet. I've heard people say they steam them in water and all that kind of stuff. That always has potential to do damage. The makeup, the composition of what's in here won't do that harm or anything else like that. It doesn't mess with the paper. It doesn't let stuff bleed. Bleeding on stuff like printed material, like a stamp, would be horrible. If there's like red ink on it and you use, say, water, steam, or anything else like that, that red will bleed over and pretty much destroy the item. This is the safest thing I have personally ever seen for, again, 55, 60, 65 maybe % of things that are vintage, old stuff. This works awesome. It works great on vintage toys and things along that line too. I've used it on old Star Wars boxes. I've used it on Weebles. I've used it on stamps, covers, magazines, comics. Again, it depends on the type of label. If you use this on a type of label that you shouldn't, it may not be wise to try and pull it off. You could ruin the actual item that you're trying to pull it off. It, again, depends on the label itself. Many times, if you can just see a little tiny corner of the label, you can dab a little bit of this on and see what happens. But I wouldn't just dump this on something if you're not sure. Now, even like an address label, people say, well, those are put on a whole different way. A large number of the earlier address labels, 30s, 40s, and even up into the 50s, were set off or glued, attached to the magazine or whatever it was attached to, with a simple run of the label over a moist surface. So you'll be surprised at how many of this will actually work for. So again, it's super safe stamp lifting fluid. Let's hop over and show you this in action right now. I've been into stamps for many, many years. Anything that is gummed, like a stamp, anything that takes moisture to activate the glue on the back, is removable by this, or almost everything. I remove quite a few things with this, actually. And these are just a few examples right here of some of the things that I've removed with this right here. This is a luggage label. Now, this is gummed. It's made to get wet on the back. They have like a thing they run it over, or they used to, back in the 30s when this was made, 20s or 30s. So it's basically a big giant stamp. So this actually works for it. Smaller one, same basic thing. Again, this was just ran over something. They got it wet. They were issued in huge sleeves of a couple hundred of these. And again, the back has no more glue on it, though. It's been used. So it's not a real essential that the back hasn't any glue on it. Now, believe it or not, these could be flattened out and re-gummed. So if somebody really, really wanted to sell these and use these again, they're fully able to be done that way. There's tons of places you can get glue that you can recoat these with. There are machines, there's sprayers. There's actually machines I've seen that you can feed these into and it'll just re-gum them. People re-gum postage stamps and try and con people. I wouldn't recommend doing it, but that is something that people do tend to do on occasion. Just FYI. Now, these are stamps. These came off incredibly quickly. Very, very quickly. It takes like 10-15 seconds on some of these. The biggest key on things like this, too, is that you want to do it from the back side. The most important aspect is getting the glue on the back wet, not the front nut necessarily. Now, it's not going to hurt it. It's super safe. Remember, it's super safe. So this is made to actually put it on a stamp, at least. Regular paper, it does not hurt. Now, in some cases, it could do some damage to something. I haven't found anything that will, but I'm not going to tell you it won't. I have no clue. I don't even know what's in it. I know you don't want to get in your eyes or anything else like that. Don't swallow it. It goes into complete details. It's not much to it. Now, this is a vintage sealed LP record. This is Henry Mancini, the Pink Panther here. Well known. It's actually sealed, so this is worth a little bit of decent money here. Now, it has a sticker up here, and we're going to just swing it around. It doesn't really matter which direction it's going in. Just to give you an idea. Again, it has to be a sort of stamp that uses moisture to actually adhere it to it. It's a good example to test it on something like that's not key and super important before you do anything else with it. Now, this is just, again, we're just soaking it onto there. You got to let it soak in a little bit is the gist on it. Again, anything that's like the gum of a postage stamp. Most of the earlier like labels that you'll run into from the 30s or so, even some that are on like comic books, you'll find that they're like postage stamps. So any of those sorts, they work incredibly well. It pretty much just falls off at the end. That's really all there is to it. Just sticking some on there. Again, when you do this, make sure you wash your hands afterwards and the whole works. It's safe for the items. I wouldn't drink it or get it near your eyes, but it will take the stuff off in a very, very short period of time. Sometimes I've used a tool to help it along, like a little spatula or something else like that. But overall, a stamp will almost literally fall off. So anyway, it's one of the easiest ways I would say to use for something like that. I know people say use water and stuff for stamps, but there's a chance the water might not be perfect distilled or anything else like that, and it still might lift off stuff. If there's hinges, like stamp hinges on the back of a stamp, this will remove those as well. Now, I'm just flecking it off here. I haven't left it on very long, but if you noticed, it's pretty much instantaneous, and it's totally, totally gone. There's nothing left of it when it's on there, because what it's doing is activating and then destroying the glue on this. And then it's just a matter of wiping it down. This is the original sticker that's been on this thing since 1975 or so. And it obliterates the actual glue on the back, or at least the lock on it. You can still see the glue itself is now stuck on here instead of being stuck on here. I've never played with them after it dries off, so maybe it's still usable. I don't really know. But the point of it is that it always gets the glue off. It always gets the entire sticker off, too. So stuff like this. This is a sealed LP record. Since it's sealed, if you're going to sit here and pick on something and it's really mounted on there well, it could rip the cover. Old cello wraps have spots, like you can see right up on here, where it is actually kind of semi-damaged to a little bit of an extent. Now, that may be from when it was first made. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's got little tiny holes here and there. Any extra damage or stress or trying to scrape in a section on one of these, no matter what it is, whether it's a toy even. I've used this on toys. I've used it on, geez, hundreds of different items I've used this stuff on, and it always seems to do the job. There's Gooba Gone, right? I hear people talk about Gooba Gone and all that kind of stuff. With Gooby Gone, it's a colored material. And if you're doing it on some things, it will damage those things in many cases. This has nothing. Once I've wiped it, literally there's nothing. You can't even feel it. You'd never know it was there at all. It looks perfectly fine, like it was never ever done. I can always tell when someone hasn't used this or they tried something else. Like the Glubagon on some of these, it might mess up the plastic, the cello wrap. If it's on the individual item itself, no cello, and you're going to use Glubagon, I've also seen it ripple the surface of things. I've also seen it where it's removed color. Again, look up, you guys probably all know, gals, everybody probably knows what Glubagon is. This is the safest alternative for most of these vintage ones. Now, the type of glue that's on the ones that go on cello is usually the kind that this works on. The same thing for some of the cardboard boxes, earlier toys, earlier mailing labels from, say, the 30s, and even somewhat into the 40s. I wouldn't try it on an expensive comic book unless you were sure on the type of label it was. Chances are it's not going to do any damage, but again, this isn't my stuff. I just buy it from somebody. It's always done the trick for the stuff that I personally know about. Again, if you're going to remove stuff stuck together like stamps, you can do this as well. So let's say you got some stamps that are all stuck together. This will get it out of the way. You can pour the fluid on the backing paper using a pour spout. You clean it with water, so there's really not much to this at all. But I would honestly, as I said, not mess with anything with the cello by scraping it off or using Glubagon or any of those other commercial ones. None of those are safe for this stuff. Those are made for like plastics and stuff like that, where you just want to get rid of the label. It's not for the collector. This is designed for very expensive items, stamps that cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. People use this for. So it's safe for that reason. This is the only one that I personally would recommend to try and get any of this sort, the stuff that I've shown you, off of your items. Again, make sure it's this type of material. If it's not something that has gum on the back like a stamp, you could actually do more harm if you're not careful using this, say in a comic book, a magazine, or something like that. It all depends. Now, there is a way to get those other things off as well, which maybe I'll go into in another video, but this is the stuff I use for probably 55–60% of things I want to mess with or remove gunk or goo, like records. I use this on every record pretty much, or the vast majority of them. I don't know what it is about the cello, but they always seem to have the type of labels that this stuff gets off extremely easily, as do most toys that I find. Even like on a cardboard box, they always seem to be the same type of label if it's like 50s, mostly 50s, but 40s and before almost always. And even, as I said, some comic books this will work on too in the 30s and 40s, mostly only Golden Age, but you want to be very careful. Try it on a cheap dollar one before you do anything. Try it on something that, you know, it's okay if it gets damaged a little bit, just in case you don't quite get it or there's something you do wrong. You're not going to be out any considerable amount. Now, this costs maybe, I don't know, $5 I think I paid for this. You can buy it in bigger containers. I do have a couple big jugs of it here too. I couldn't tell you what they cost anymore. It's been a little while since I bought any. But anyway, this is super safe stamp lift fluid. Well, there we have it. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
Zero-gravity cliffhangers. You race them through the giant loop, the death-defying spiral, up the wall to zero gravity, and take the lead to win. Zero-gravity cliffhangers with Night Glow from Tyco.